Hey, welcome to your Aries horoscopes for the week of December 3rd through the 9th. We're in our first full week of December here. We're also moving into the shadow period of our very last Mercury retrograde for the year. I'm sure you guys were just waiting on bated breath to hear that news. It's true. Pardon me. The retrograde starts on the 13th. So we are entering the shadow period of that retrograde on Wednesday, which I do believe is the 6th of Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the 6th. Yes. And then the retrograde actually starts a week later in Capricorn, but it's not a full Capricorn retrograde this time because we actually finish off the retrograde in Sagittarius, which puts us right there in line for all of the Mercury retrogrades to be in fire signs next year, which means the next Mercury retrograde will probably be an Aries one because it's the first fire sign of the year, right? So get yourselves prepared for that, but we have months and months and months to prepare for that one. We should probably get prepared for this one as well. The thing about Mercury retrogrades being in earth signs is we have begun and ended the year in a Mercury retrograde like 3 years in a row. And so when you look at all of the crazy stuff that's been going on in the world recently and how things are just getting worse, they're not getting better, nothing is ever getting fixed or anything like that. This does have an effect on it because the earth signs are really the element that gets those things moving and gets things organized and gets things done. So it's been a challenge to have to begin and end the years in a Mercury retrograde, which means that we are technically beginning 2024 in a Mercury retrograde. The good news, though, is because this retrograde starts as early as it does, we are only in that retrograde for the first couple of days of the year. So that's a good thing, right? At least something in this Mercury retrograde madness, right? We still have no planets in Aries. We also still have Chiron in retrograde in Aries as well. And focus is on self. And well, Chiron's focus is on self. Aries' focus is more on the past. And so I kind of look at this as one of those opportunities to be able to sort of see who you are now and understand the events that took place in the past that sort of got you here. Now, our whole entire lives are learned behavior. And we don't even realize that we're picking up on it. We don't even realize that we're learning it as much. It just sort of happens. It's like you go through life and all these things stick. And before you know it, you build bad habits in order to cope, in order to protect yourself, in order to do all the things that you want to do. And with Chiron being retrograde, it does sort of feel like you're stuck that way, if that makes sense. Now, I have an Aries little brother and I love him to pieces. And recently in the last few years, he's in his 40s now. And recently in the last few years, I've been hearing from him a lot about how I'm just so grouchy these days. I'm like a grumpy old man already, and I just can't seem to shake that, or I don't want to shake that, or it's just who I am. And so nothing is going to change there. And the reality is that choices can be made to change our behavior and who we are and how we interact with others every single day. We're never too old to make those changes. And the interesting thing is that once we hit our 30s, I noticed when I was in my 30s, it was in my 30s that I started to realize, oh my gosh, I'm stuck in these ways and I can't change. And that's absolutely not true. Actually, I made a major change in my life just last week, maybe even the week before last week. Maybe it was a couple of weeks ago. It was such a big deal to me, and yet it's so insignificant. I can't even remember how long it has been. And it was a change that I never in a million years thought that I would actually be able to do. And it was not so much a change as an elimination of something, which opens up doors for me to eliminate other bad habits as well. So At 46, almost 47 years old, I made a choice to better my situation. And that's just how easy it is. All of the work up to it and the overthinking it and the how am I going to live in this different way and worrying about what that's going to look like really has gotten in my way for years and years and years. And then one day I just said, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. And that was the end of it. So I feel like this week, there's a couple of things that are going to come up for you guys on and off throughout the week. And that shadow period, we enter into that shadow period on Wednesday. That is might be starting to come up during that shadow period because this is communication pattern changes. We're definitely going to start to see that come up once we enter into that shadow period. So I feel like one of two things is happening for you guys this week. One, either you get so irritated with being who you are that you can't even stand to be in the room with yourself. Been there, done that, by the way. And that sort of pushes you towards, I have to make a change, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Or it feels like there's a possibility that you'll have multiple instances of people calling you out on this particular behavior. And it may not be a behavior that you really see as a bad behavior, but when you have a lot of people bringing it up, one person, two-person, it's like, that's their problem. I'm not gonna change me because it bothers other people. But once it seems to be coming up a lot around you, it might not be a bad idea just to take a look at how you're doing it and maybe just change it up a little bit. Now, that being said, it is very important for me to add this little element to it. And that is that I'm not saying change who you are to suit everybody else's needs. Okay. Aries don't do that. We all know that Aries do not do that. I'm not saying that. Obviously, you don't dim your light because it's too bright for other people. I agree with that. But there is an element of diplomacy as well that can be brought in so that you're not necessarily making a complete change as to, once I was grumpy and today I'm no longer grumpy anymore. But slight changes. Like I don't let as many things put me in a bad mood. I am more selective about what puts me in that grumpy mood, if that makes sense. So that it's not so overwhelming for you. In this context, it really doesn't have a lot to do with anybody else. But let's talk about communication for a minute. Now, I'm a very, very blunt, shoot from the hip, I'm not buttering your biscuits kind of a communicator. And while a lot of people appreciate that about me, a lot more people are actually terrified because of that. They're annoyed all the time. I have people that don't even listen when I talk anymore, just because they automatically take my communication pattern as telling them what to do or being bossy or something along those lines. Now, while I agree that there is a bossy element in there, and maybe I do need to address that because it's not up to me to tell other people what to do, it's also not up to me to dim my light and who I am because other people are uncomfortable with it. So it is, my solution to that is to meet in the middle. A little bit of diplomacy goes a long way. Changing my tone just a little bit goes a long way, depending on the circumstances. But without a doubt, I'm not watering myself down or turning into a mousy woman. That's not ever going to happen. So if anybody's out there waiting for that, you're going to be waiting for an awful long time. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And if you love your horoscopes, do send a tip or donation to my coffee link, which is there in the description. Really appreciate that. Really, really, really love it every single time I get one. I'm Melissa Bruce, Heavy Metal Psychic. Thank you so much for watching. And I will see you guys next week when we are full on in that retrograde. Scary. Play scary music now. You guys kick some butt. Don't water yourself down. Be the badasses that you are. But take into consideration also that, sometimes the world's just not completely ready for all of it at once. Okay, we'll just put it that way. You guys have a great week, and I will see you next week, everybody.